Looking for all the latest tips, tricks, updates of what's going on in the recruiting industry, check out the Digital Recruiter Sunday night newsletter. I am not here to blow up your inbox. I don't have enough time to create an email every single day. I once a week send you impactful, a big thing that I've learned this week or realized from working with hundreds of recruiters, owning an agency myself. I'm in the trenches every day like you are, and I'm sharing everything that I'm seeing every Sunday, from content, from automation, from how to get better clients, how to find candidates quicker, how to grow your team, how to hire people, everything in between. The link is in the comments. Sign up today, or you can go to my LinkedIn profile, Clark Wilcox. It's the first link on my featured section. You can sign up there. It's all free. So you get all the tips, everything that you need, free in your inbox every Sunday night. Sign up today. Welcome back. Another episode, Digital Recruiter Podcast. I am so pumped about our guest today. She is taking LinkedIn by storm this year, the recruiting world by storm, the go-getters of all go-getters, Jessica Oliver. Thanks for being here today.
Thank you. Thanks for having me. A lot of the reason is because of you. So,
well, I appreciate you saying that. I feel like I am a fraction of the piece of the journey. You have taken something and just completely run with it, and it's awesome to see. I mean, you've built out an AI platform this year. You've established kind of a couple different kind of niches and lanes. You're building an agency. You're making placements. I mean, when we first talked, you were at a full-time job last October, November. Here we are 10 months later. I feel like you have like 3 businesses now. So like, if you can, for the audience, just give us like a little breakdown, little introduction, like, 45 seconds on kind of who you are, what you do.
Yeah. So I have about 15 years of experience in IT recruiting, both agency and in-house. I started at an agency. I was recruited from one of our clients to go help them build a startup. I took them from 4 people to 40 people in 18 months. And then I saw a little bit of writing on the wall and decided to move on. I had only had a couple of years of recruiting under my belt, but one thing that I realized when I was looking for a new job was that the positions that I was looking at that were paying the amount of money that I was used to making required an ungodly amount of experience with all kinds of education. And, these director level roles were only paying $100,000 and they required 20 years of experience. And I was making over $100,000. So there was no reason for me to go that route. And so I went back to agency. That was 2018. I stayed there for a really long time, same company until about 2022. Billed $1 million on one side. So I had never done sales before. I was working with 2 business development managers. They were bringing in positions and I was filling them. They were fantastic to work with, but I had never done sales before. So just only on the recruiting side. I left there and went to another agency because I had done so well and it was such a small company that I needed more in order to be able to make more. And so whereas that company that I was working with only had a couple of business development people, I needed to find a company that had a lot more business development people. So I had a lot more jobs to work on. And so I went to another agency and I was paired up with somebody that was doing $3 million a year. And him and I were kind of partnered. We essentially ended up not getting along very well. And then I was approached to do full desk for Disney through a professional services company. And so I spent 2024 doing full desk for Disney on site, working at the Disney office. I helped with their AI Center of Excellence. I helped place a bunch of designers and developers and, worked on PhotoPass and all the cool apps and stuff within Disney. But the company that I was working with was overseas and I was the only boots on the ground and I didn't really have a lot of support. So it was very difficult for me to get anything accomplished, being so new to the sales side and being so new to the account.
Yeah. And I think that's kind of when we got introduced, right? And you reached out last year and, I think having some of the, the framework, realizing kind of the opportunity, what you decided to go off on your own for the first time. Like what made you do that versus kind of find something else? Like what made you decide I'm going to take the leap now?
Honestly, I just wasn't getting what I was looking for anywhere else. And one of the biggest things that I've had a problem with over the last couple of positions that I've had is I don't agree with the way that the things are being done, but I have to do it because that's just the way to do it. But I didn't want to take people out of jobs and put them into positions that I knew that weren't going to be a great fit. I didn't want to work with people that I didn't like working with.
Yeah.
There were just a lot of things that in corporate America you have to, kind of shut your mouth and just suck it up. And I got to the point where I was like, you know what? I don't have to shut my mouth. I don't have to suck it up. I've been very successful on my own so far. I'm making these people an ungodly amount of money, so I might as well just do it on my own.
Yeah. What I think a lot of people resonate and feel that way. And we have a lot of listeners here that haven't made the jump, that are thinking about it. I talked to a couple clients even yesterday that are individual contributors that have like, just like, when can I leave? Like, what do I need to leave? Now, looking back, it's been almost a year. What do you recommend to someone that is thinking about making the jump? What do you really actually have to worry about versus what people tell you that you need to worry about?
Oh, that's a really good question. I would say, first and foremost, one of the biggest pieces of advice that I can give is don't overthink the tools. And I know that you've told me this multiple times. A lot of my other, mentors and stuff have told me this. Like I overthought the tools in the beginning, and I was constantly changing everything, and it was making me very overwhelmed. I was spending a lot of money unnecessarily, and honestly, I don't use a single one of those programs today. So don't overthink it. Like all you need literally, and I think Keely talks about this, is a spreadsheet and a phone. Like you do not need anything else. Like I don't even have an ATS right now. And I'm still doing what I'm doing without an ATS. So don't get too caught up in that. I would say one of the biggest and most helpful things, honestly, was, your program. And then I took Parker Cheney's program as well. And I did that, and I reached out immediately because I had never been a part, I had always been on LinkedIn, but I had never really been a part of the digital sales, personal branding revolution that we were kind of going into.
Yeah.
And I knew that there was so much there that I absolutely had to, that's what I had to do. And so
Yeah.
I had always worked with like regular, agencies that worked on all different kinds of positions, and just textbook ATS, LinkedIn Recruiter, don't really post anything. You don't use video, just very, very old school, like probably a lot of other people are doing today. And I wanted to get the tools in order to be able to bring myself into the digital world.
Yeah.
I also didn't have the sales experience. So I had zero clue on how to get any sort of client on my own or do any sort of business development. So I really threw myself into professional development and learning for the first couple of months. It took me a lot longer to ramp up than I thought it would.
Yeah.
But it ended up working out.
When you say a lot longer, what was your expectation versus kind of the reality that you experienced?
I would say the first 3 months is just kind of a whirlwind. Like one of the biggest issues I had was with process. And, I think that that's something that you and I talked about. I have done a lot of Ben Minna's summits. And so I tried to take bits and pieces from, a lot of the other people that have been in the game for a while. And I just couldn't find a process that was something that was good for me, that was working. I'm not the type of person that can sit down and write out each hour of my schedule for the day. And so I was trying all these other things that were working for other people, but weren't necessarily working for me.
Yeah. The 3 months of the whirlwind, I tell people, especially if you're new to business development, and I've been doing it more and more this summer, is even for people that are in recruiting, not just new to recruiting, but new to sales, agency recruiting sales. It's a different beast. I've had, a couple of sales recruiting coaches on this year. Chris Mader is one that he said he tells his companies, give your salespeople 2 years.
Yeah.
Literally don't even look at their spread for 2 years, just their process. Like if they're actually doing it, and like 2 years of lead in before he expects them to like internalize everything and get to now their spread's going to go up at some point, right? The weekly gross profit.
Mm-hmm.
But that's what it takes, like to come full circle. And so it's interesting. I get a lot of recruiters coming to me being like, this program didn't work, that program. And it was just like, it's not that it didn't work. They just didn't tell you that it's going to take a year of a lot of mistakes to get to the other side. And like, that's all it is. And I think that's what I was trying, because I know we had a couple of those tools. I'm like, Jessica, just like go get the reps. Like, that's what I remember telling you. Like, please, I could go back to the messages. Like, just go get the reps. It will happen because you're tenacious and you get after it. I think that's the key. If you're like, I don't want to do the work, right? I'm not willing to do that. Well, that's a separate question, right? Mm-hmm. Maybe go do something that's not really going to be for you, but it's like, I'm willing to do it. I'm willing to invest. The timeline, I think, is what screws people up.
It's unrealistic.
Right. And so the new recruiters, I'm like, if you're new to the industry, you better have at least a year saved up or have a part-time job or something else. If you're newer to sales, but you've recruited, maybe 6 months, but I would still probably tell you a year. So you're not thinking about it.
Right.
Right. Because it's just, you can't escape the reps, the different scenarios, the everything else. But I don't want to keep talking about it. I obviously have a lot to say there, but like, because people are going to want to know kind of your experience around that. And if you kind of found that to be true, or like kind of when you started to feel it click, I guess. Yeah.
So, I started doing a lot of different things, which I think did me a disservice, but looking back on it, I needed it in order to be able to get where I am now. So I tried all different kinds of things. I found one of the biggest problems was standing out from all the noise. AI is absolutely fantastic, but also, it's a blessing and a curse. Yep. The barrier of entry to recruiting is so low that anybody and everybody can do it. And with all the AI and automation added on top of it, it just makes for a very, very, very busy space. And I know what I have to offer, and I know how much better I am at recruiting than a lot of the other people out there. I was just having a really hard time standing out from everybody else. And so, I really started putting myself out there with the content. Thanks to Digital Recruiter. I think when you and I started working together, I had 6,000 followers, and now I have 13,000. So, really posting consistently, just sharing the knowledge that I have, leaning on other people throughout the industry. What are we talking about again?
I think I'm just going to highlight for you. I'm looking at it now. You got 1,100 likes, almost 3,000 likes, 800 likes. And those posts aren't always the ones that get leads, right? Sometimes it's the ones that get 5 likes, 10 likes, 15 likes, right? They get inbound traction. But it's just, things were clicking when you realized you kind of had to stand out, right? Yeah. So as you put yourself out there more, did people start responding more? Like, did you see that warm up conversations? Like, what was the effect of that? The more you put yourself out there to show that you're different, how did the market respond?
That's a good question. So, I had to think outside of the box because I was following what everybody else was telling me to do, and it just wasn't working. And so,
like what? We're telling you to do
just like the mass amounts of messages, and then doing like the drip sequences and trying to send messages every couple of days and doing the personalized messages. And it was just a ton of work that I wasn't really seeing a lot of return on. And so I started using Juicebox, which I'm sure a lot of people are aware of, but if you're not, it's an AI sourcing tool that pulls from like 5 different data sources that are not LinkedIn, that are not, the normal places where people find these high caliber type people. And so I started to realize that with me using Juicebox, I had access to a lot of people that other people weren't getting access to. And because my searches were so niche and so specific, I was really able to hone in and be very specific to what the client's needs were. And so essentially, I was taking people that I saw had openings on LinkedIn, and I would, I would source in Juicebox with their competitors. I would use their their tech stack. I would do a search like I would if I were working on a role for them. And I would Loom video myself and just say, hey, John, this is Jessica. Like, I know that there's a lot of noise out there. I wanted to show you, I saw your PHP developer role. You know, LinkedIn seems to be the hot place for everybody to hang out, but there are a ton more candidates that are out there that nobody has access to. And so I wanted to show you, you know, this is the response rate that I'm getting. This is the caliber of people that I'm speaking with, you know, just to show them who I am and what I was doing that was different.
That I've coached on that. I've done that myself.
Mm-hmm.
And that it's because people do, oh, I'm going to do the video cold outreach. Hi, I'm John Smith, yada, yada. Again, no one cares, right?
Yeah.
That's the easy low hanging fruit. But what you're talking about, it's intentional outreach. Right? And that's what I talk about all in the courses. That's what I consult on, I coach on, like everything else is if you're not excited to make that outreach and feel like you're bringing value, then don't do it. It's a waste
Right.
because there's a bunch of wasteful outreach. But that's the way to use Loom videos. And that's what I do. I'll give content audits or whatever else to people or profile. Hey, have you thought about doing this or looking at it that way? And I've kind of run out of a little bit more time recently to do that. But like when I was getting up and running and trying to get traction, that's what I did. And I was book calls for that. You could put your little Calendly link in the top right of the Loom video,
Yeah.
right? And then they book calls. I mean, that is the way to do it. And I think a big evolution I've seen even this year in outreach is I tell people just do a connection only campaign, do one message, do a digital handshake, and that's all you do. And then let's go manual on the follow up.
Yeah.
Way more without a 3-message drip sequence because it depends on your audience. It depends on what they're getting bombarded with. That's going to be a lot better use of your time. And frankly, more impactful for them. So I love that you did. I don't even know if you and I talked about that, but that's always a response I give people when they're like, should I do automated video? I'm like, no, like it's actually video is helpful, but like, what do they actually need? They need the talent they don't have access to.
Right.
So always think about that.
Well, and
Like
how do you
that's the key.
differentiate yourself from everybody else? In messaging, all you're doing is saying that you're doing stuff that's different from what everybody else is doing, right? So
Right.
like you might have this really cool way of doing things where you surface a lot of candidates that nobody else has access to, but that's what everybody else is saying too. So if you're on
Show them.
video showing that and it's very specific to their company and it's their competition and you're showing that that person's already responded and you already have a call scheduled with them, then it's a
Gold.
sealed deal.
Gold. I love that. For those that listen, I mean, that's like, we'll see who actually does it, but that's it. Like, honestly, if you make it or not in this industry, at least as a consultative recruiter, you either listen to this and go out and do that, or you dismiss it and then wonder why you're not getting results. And I know you said offline, like, I gave you a compliment. That's hard to get compliments for you. I'm like, yeah, I guess I come off a little bit like harsher than maybe I intend to at times, but it's because, to your point, the barrier to entry is so low in recruiting
Yeah.
that people forget that all the time. And it's just like no one knows what you do. You have to advocate for yourself.
Yeah.
And if you don't, no one else will, especially when you're solo. And even if you've
100%.
been doing it 3.5 years or 4 years like I have, right? Almost a year. Like if we drop off for a month or two, what happens? Right? Like we have to always keep it going and kind of build those relationships. And man, so like that approach just over and over again, like yeah, it's gonna stand out because you're gonna get the people now that are just falling off. Like times are quote unquote tough,
Yeah.
so people just give up and they fall off. So if you can just survive and keep going in this time, like that's where people thrive.
Well, and I was really focusing on my area too because I knew that if I got in front of people that it was going to be a sealed deal. I don't go to an office and I don't go to a lot of events. So there just wasn't a place for me to be able to network in real life. And so one of the Loom videos, a gentleman, said, I don't have any positions right now, but I love what you're doing. Let's meet for coffee. And so I went down and met with him for coffee and he ended up being the president of the Central Florida Navy League. And he's like, oh, we're having a big event next week. Like we would love for you to come. I went to the event and then, that's where I fell in love with the GovCon space. But I learned it just one thing turned into another that has turned into so much more of that just by, putting myself out there and trying to stand out from the crowd.
A couple things. We're going to dive into the GovCon space and how you kind of quote unquote fell into that and ran with it. But the key nugget there is another thing I just feel like I've had this conversation 10 times this week already, just in coaching, is a lot of recruiters, especially ones that kind of fall into agency recruiting, just feel like open role, fill a role. But at Aerotech, we would meet 5, 10, 15 meetings before we could get our shot sometimes with a company. So then
For
it's like, well,
sure.
what are you meeting about? So, but if you start off with just discovery and learning about their business and their day to day, you can build up the intel to have a bunch more meetings and be like, yeah, I get you're probably not hiring right now. Most people I initially meet with aren't. At
Yeah.
some point, they will be, right?
Yeah.
Especially if they're growth minded. So, like, I'm there to call when you need it. But, like, in the meantime, like, let's learn about it, right? If a prepared recruiter is a better recruiter. So, like, let's take the time now, to kind of figure some stuff out and meet because we're in the same industry or it's similar, or I know the types of candidates you're going to be hiring for. And, like, let's get to know each other. Because as a decision maker, as a business owner, like myself, I like talking to people. Even if I can't use their service now, I'm upfront with them, but I still will meet with them. I'll meet with 30 minutes, an hour. I did that yesterday. I've done that a couple times this week because I'm always planting the seeds as a responsible business owner, which I try to be. I'm sure if I always accomplish it, of like knowing I have different tools in my arsenal that I could leverage. And I might not be like, hey, not right now, but I'm very direct. So I'm like, this is when I'm going to need you. Like,
Right.
let's set up, let's talk here, let's talk then. But I'm glad I learned about you because I vibe with you and I appreciate learning about your business. Like, let's set a follow up, right? Like, there are managers out there like that and leaders. Like, so get the meeting. Stop being so role focused on the right now when think business impact, especially the leaders. Their job is to think of vision 6 months down the road, a year down the road, 2 years down the road. So if you aim that way, you're going to be speaking their language more. Then what happened? You meet up for coffee and it opened up the floodgates to something,
Yeah.
right? So I had to share it because it's come up over and over and over again, and I took it for granted in my aerotech training. But I realized like most people just don't have that, like, and they don't let things see the full cycle. So the amount of recruiters that miss out on opportunities just because they didn't have the right approach or ask the right question is astounding. Like the best are typically right under your nose, like the best opportunities. So I'm going to stop my rant there.
Well, and I think too, like I think about how often I do it myself, where people reach out to me on LinkedIn and they're like, oh, I do this, this, and this because I get stuff all the time, or, my platform does this or my platform does that, or, do you need an executive assistant or a VA or whatever? And so I just respond like, hey, not the right time, but I can't tell you how many times I've circled back around with those people because here we are 2 or 3 months later. And I'm like, hey, remember me? Like you reached out, like I need you now.
Yeah.
Like and you've been chirping in my ear this entire time. And so I want to give that person the opportunity. So, I mean, I absolutely do it myself as well.
Yeah, absolutely. And it doesn't always have to be, hey, I think just the approach of, do you think like is that something in the next 12 months that like you might have to look at, right? And
Yeah.
then if you get a yes there, it's like, okay, great, like why don't we just like meet and I could be an option, right? Something that you can consider.
Yeah.
And sometimes I tell people, hey, let's meet after the holiday, or like, hey, let's do 2 to 3 weeks, like I'll send an invite. So there's no pressure of like I got to meet right now, but typically no one has anything that scheduled 3 weeks out. Like they'll have a few things unless it's like a trip or a vacation or maybe going to a conference, but they'll tell you that, right? And so it's like you kind of know the calendar's probably open, and then you can kind of book them. You can just book a meeting that way,
Yeah.
right? And then what happens if I push like if I say like 3 weeks down the road, you know what happens is they actually need to meet with you earlier. They say, actually, can we do sooner? And then you're like, oh, there's some urgency here, right? And so it's kind of a good way to kind of test out like are they okay putting it off, especially in recruiting? Or actually, you know what? Like, no, I can't do this week or next week, but like let's meet as soon as I can be because I do want to talk about this.
Yeah.
And so it's that kind of a way to gauge urgency sometimes. If you like throw out a meeting, it may not be a right now, but like let's get something on the books. Because you'd be surprised with just taking a chill approach and just like an approach that kind of puts them 1st.
Mm-hmm.
They start to open up because they realize immediately like that's a different experience, right? Like oh, Jessica has a different approach. Like this is cool. Like this might be the recruiter we could work with.
Yeah. And you're playing the long game.
Yeah.
It's different from bombarding their phone 5 times a day, 5 days in 5 days in a row. It's like
With
I
the
call
same
you.
thing over and over.
Yeah. Yeah. It's like I call you today, send you an email in a week or two, follow up on LinkedIn, do a couple comments, it could be a couple months down the line, but just slowly being in front of them constantly.
And that's what the content does a lot of the heavy lifting for
Uh-huh.
you. because like you don't have to keep track of 50 calls you always have to make and all that. It's like get a post out there, stay in front. You still track and follow up people individually and stuff like that, but that can do a lot of the heavy lifting for you. Because I remember you said what 52 days in, I think you got an inbound for a CTO search.
Mm-hmm.
Because I know you were like go 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 go. I'm like 52. That's not bad for a C-level search. Like 52. I mean, but you just like kept going, kept going, kept going. I guess all I want to get into the GovCon, but just like that first part with the content, like what made you just like stick with it? I do see a lot of people drop off.
I don't know, and I have dropped off significantly over the last month and a half or so, just because I've been so busy. I really haven't been able to do it.
Yeah.
I kind of started running out of ideas. I the best content is things that are going on, right then and there. And I didn't really have anything that was going on right then and there that was very exciting. And so, I started having conversations with clients. I started making a couple of placements, and then I had some stuff to talk about. So then I started, posting significantly more about things that I was experiencing throughout the process of my people going through the interview processes and what I was hearing from, clients when I was doing the intake calls and stuff. But aside from that, I didn't really have anything to talk about except from things that had happened in the past. So, but I knew that if I just stuck with it, that was going to be, there was a light at the end of the tunnel. And so I still use the content thing very regularly, to try and get my face out and my thoughts out in front of people as much as I possibly can. But it's exhausting in the beginning. It really is.
Yeah. It's it is because it's a muscle that you got to practice, and you have stories there. It's just hard sometimes to know what's going to be valuable, right? It's just
Sure.
kind of that connecting there, and that's why we create way more. Like that's the biggest evolution for us this year is creating more content for clients and pretty much everyone coming in on our like coaching and consulting side, because it is just getting them over the hump. And that's one of the things I did early on is I had our director of customer success, who Ross Mayfield, who's a copywriter, just interview me every month. Really, we kind of did weekly in the beginning. We did, then eventually every month. And that's what we do with clients. Like just spend an hour. We're going to ask the right questions. We're going to make sure we're not repetitive from month to month, because that's like what our team focuses on. And then just like talk shop. And what happens, you start to like get it going, the stories spill out. You realize because it's like what you think doesn't matter is actually what matters.
So I was just going to say that. So it took me a really long time to realize that everybody else doesn't have the same knowledge that I do. And so what I thought wasn't going to be valuable is very valuable for people that are not doing the same exact things that I'm doing. So like we're going to dive into the unorthodox ways of sourcing. Like I didn't realize that I was one of the only people that were using that platform. Not really anybody else knows about it. So part of my kind of transition over the last couple of months have been giving away more secrets of stuff that, is really helping me to try and help everybody else as well. And I think a lot of us, we second guess ourselves because we're like, why would they want to hear about that? Like, that's like your standard recruiting stuff, but it might not be to them. And if it's a good piece of advice, it might be a piece of advice that changes someone's, right, entire way of doing things. So I mean, I've had information that has come off of this podcast or off of Ben Minnett's podcast or, from some of the people from the summits that have, 100% helped to kind of form who I am and get me to where I am today. So you never know what you'll learn from somebody else.
You never know. It's like what's boring to you could be game changing to someone else.
Yeah.
How many times have I talked about automation, content? Or you listen to like I hit the same themes over and over, but I get new people over and over.
Right.
Or some people I reached out to 4 years ago that now is the right time. They're like, man, you've been consistent for 3 years and like I'm ready now. Yeah. I'm like, great. Like, let's go. Like, let's get to work. Because I know that you might not be ready for me 4 years ago. I might not be ready for you 4 years ago.
Right.
And that's the other thing is like, it's hard in the beginning because you want to be able to help everyone. But I think having that humility and just swallow my pride of like, I'm way better suited now to help people than I was 3 years ago. It doesn't mean I didn't do a great job with clients 3 years ago. I'm just better now. Like, and that's like, and so some people they can see the newbie and they're like, I'll work with you later. Right. And all that now I get to reap the rewards a little bit more because it's like it kind of, impact way more people. But you just have to you're going to miss out on stuff. I had a client miss out on a C-level search for for a power gen company because he hadn't made a CEO search placement before, but he's done a lot of stuff in power gen. And they're like, we found someone that done in power gen and done a CEO search. Like, we're gonna go with them. But he's 2 years into this
Right.
on his own. He's killing it. He already bills over $500,000 a year on his own, and I'm like, you're going to get those searches. They'll probably be from existing clients or a new client that has really bought into the way you do things.
Mm-hmm.
They're going to give you just lost it this time. And again, follow up in 6 weeks. You might get that search still. Like, let's see what happens.
For sure.
Right. But like, that's just part of the game. Right. So like that, there is a rite of passage and stuff. It doesn't mean that just because you lost the first proposal on maybe a new type of offer or consulting or retain that you can never get it, but it might just not be that opportunity. Like, just keep going. And like, sometimes it does take 2, 3, 4 proposals to like be able to land that client if it's like your first time selling a certain type of engagement, especially. So I'm not trying to tangent too much, but again, I'm just like you're bringing up all these like lessons that I've been like learning either myself or teaching people the last 3 months, and I don't hear it talked about anywhere. So it's if not us, who's going to talk about it? But let's talk about GovCon. So you go to that event. It opens up your mind to GovCon. You built, Clara out now, this AI powered procurement platform, which is like nuts with like everything else. Give us a scoop.
So I joined the Central Florida Navy League, and I went to a networking event, and I met a bunch of really, really wonderful people, a lot of them veterans. I am very veteran prone. I'm very pro America. And so that I felt like
Likewise.
I felt like that was the perfect space for me. And so I went to Vets 25, which is a small business conference that they do every year. There are, a lot of small businesses that do business directly with the federal government. The federal government spends more money than anybody else in the world. And they set aside 23% of their entire budget to go specifically towards small businesses. And so I'm a registered women-owned small business and economically disadvantaged women-owned small business. And because of that, I am in this very, very small pool of these women-owned companies that are doing on average between $2 and $9 million a year. And so I went to the conference just to get some insights on some things that were being overhauled with, the president just coming in and some things that were being taken out, and just to kind of get a lay of the land. And I was sitting at lunch, just chatting people up like I do. And then I met some wonderful people that were like, oh, I am a prime, which is somebody that holds the actual contract. And so a lot of these people, they own like professional services and IT companies. And when they get these contracts, it's in the works for months, and then it happens really fast. And so they need 15, 20 people, these pods of people, to be able to do all of these things. And so I had a gentleman say, I could really use your help with this. And I was like, okay. And then we were like, all right, well, let's chat more, later at the bar. And so I went to the bar, and I was saying, like, for somebody new to the space, what could you share with me as a newbie? Like, what do you think is the best thing that I should know? And he's like, well, one of the things that you're going to realize is how difficult it is to find contracts to bid on, because the process is so time consuming and so antiquated. And I was like, well, what do you do now? And he's like, well, we go to this one website, and I spend 10 to 20 hours a week just looking through this one website for stuff that I can bid on. And so I was like, man, that sounds horrible. I bet AI could automate all of that. And so he jokingly said, well, if you can build it, I'll pay for it. And so we did. So
challenge accepted.
Yeah. So, he gave me like a seed round investment, a pretty large one. And I vibe coded myself as much as I possibly could to an MVP. I found a AI solutions architect to be my technical co-founder. The gentlemen that are funding the project they're service disabled veteran-owned small businesses. And so they were having the problem themselves as well. And so we have built an AI platform that allows small businesses to find government contracts faster based off of things that they have done historically. So a lot of the enterprise companies have search filters and stuff in order to be able to find those opportunities and use AI for that. But ours specifically is based off of your past proposals and things that you have gone after and won. And so we use semantic matching, and it downloads and reads the PDFs and then matches it based off of your capabilities. And then sparse signal learning, like Amazon and Netflix, where you rank if it's too big or too small or not enough money or whatever the case may be. And then the AI gets smarter and eventually, matches you more accurately with contracts that you can win.
It's almost like, I mean, it's like what the Juicebox or the pin.com and all that do for candidates.
Exactly.
That kind of same process.
Yeah.
Super cool. Crazy that you've coded that much. Feel like I definitely need to talk to you about some of that, some of my ideas on that side of this, on kind of the digital recruiter piece of things. Super cool. So you get the funding. How was it building that and trying to recruit at the same time?
I wasn't.
Okay.
Yeah. So I was pulling a salary. I couldn't,
Yeah.
I kind of put things on hold for like 2.5 months until I got to a point where I can't take the platform any further. We're getting ready to A/B test it with a couple of clients that have signed up that are on a waiting list. And as I start to put more people on the platform, I want to ensure that it is, totally scalable. And so I just hired an additional developer 2 days ago that's working on that for me while I, continue to focus on recruiting. And he's going to take it from there. And then we'll probably go live within the next 6 weeks or so.
It's so cool that just LinkedIn getting out in front of people. I mean, think about the revenue streams that like you've built just already in 10 months, right? That are going to build, and like that's the cool part. And I have another client called me yesterday. He's about to sell his firm. He just started recruiting 2.5 years ago. He's about to sell his firm, and he's getting back into the clinical space, like on the non-staffing side, and has a whole opportunity there. And it's just like when you have that industry knowledge and you put yourself out there on LinkedIn, that's what I've noticed with people like yourself. It's just you have different ways to leverage it. I have someone in those, ex-FBI, ex-Secret Service. He used LinkedIn, made a few placements, didn't love the recruiting side, but leveraged his LinkedIn to become a security consultant for like nonprofits and schools. And it's just like killing it there. He's like, Trip5's amazing. Content's amazing. He's like, but I found my channel of where I wanted to create revenue using the system and the approach. I'm like, that's fantastic. Because recruiting long term isn't for everyone. Obviously, by trade, I mean, you can recruit very well. So I know you're in the space, but for some, it's like there could be different ways to leverage it, and recruiting could be a vehicle to some of those other, adjacent revenue streams. So there's just so many cool things to do, and I appreciate your honesty about like I focused on this and then I had to focus on that. That's kind of how I feel with the coaching and the agency side of things that we have. It's really hard to do two things 100%. At the same time, especially if you're like you're building up both things. So I guess what do I want to take, because I have a couple things I want to ask you, but like getting into the GovCon space, filling out the paperwork. I hate paperwork. Who do you recommend kind of pursue something like that? What's it going to take? What does that look like? Because that's the first thing I think of. Is I just think of hundreds of pages of paperwork that my eyes are going to gloss over on. So walk us through that process. Yeah.
The government is drastically trying to help people like you and I be able to do business with them. And so every couple of months, they are tweaking things, shortening processes, cutting back a little bit on, certain requirements so that you don't have to jump through hoops in order to be able to work with them. Yeah. I went through a lot. I mean, in order to become a women-owned small business and economically disadvantaged, I had to give them all of my tax returns for the past 5 years, and my husband, pay stubs, our bank account statements. I mean, everything. So there is a lot of legwork that goes into it, but the awesome part about it is like I mentioned earlier, there's so much money and there's so many contracts. Like there's such a need for maybe like an entire overhaul for veterans hospital where they
Yeah.
need new intercom systems, or they need to put in new or upload, update, do a digital transformation with a new EHR or a new EMR. I may not specifically do that, but I have all the resources of the people that I've worked with in the past that can do stuff like that. And so
Yeah.
now that I'm registered to do business with the federal government, I am able to be a prime contract holder on those contracts. And so a lot of those contracts are, more than $100,000 and up to 5 years. So it's like you do a proposal in a couple of days and you submit it and you win it and you got 100 grand, and then you continue to get 100 grand the next year and the next year and the next year and the next year, as long as you continue to fulfill the contract. And essentially, you would be, subbing out a lot of the work if you didn't have people that exactly did what it was, that you were bidding on. But from the staffing perspective, there's a ton of things that you can do that you might not think of. They need deacons, like they need people to perform services like preachers, and that is all that it all falls under the umbrella of staffing. They need warehouse workers in DC, like they need people to set up and tear down events, like all of that. It has, staffing written all over it. And so if you register and become able to do business with them, you can bid on all of those contracts.
Super cool. I appreciate the breakdown. I mean, you have made it digestible for me, which I appreciate. Someone, because it's just like I just always assume it's so overwhelming that I'm like, I don't know. Like, I watched the movie like War Dogs once. I'm like, it's pretty cool. When they get that huge government contract, they have no idea what they're doing and stuff like that. But you think about it from a recruiting perspective, it makes a ton of sense. And I know obviously, Ben Mena is one of the OGs at that, and
Mm-hmm.
I've heard learned a little bit about the space. I definitely want to dive into it more. What's been the word on the street right this year with the changing administration, with tariffs, which again, I don't turn on the news, so because I want to keep my sanity, right? But like, what's the reality? What actually is going on? How has that shifted some of the stuff in the space this year? From your perspective and from what you've been hearing.
So they've really cracked down on a lot of the fraud and use and abuse and waste. And so
Yeah.
a lot of contracts and a lot of prime contractors that have held these, multi-million dollar contracts over the course of the last couple of years are being phased out, and the contracts are being pulled from them because they aren't being ethical and they're not doing, what they're supposed to be doing. And so that money is being reallocated into other programs, and going to different agencies. They are heavily focused on AI right now, drones, anything that they can do to help the warfighter be faster, stronger, better to respond. President Trump is huge on AI and technical advancements. As some of the guys from OpenAI and Anthropic and stuff have been kind of sworn into the government so that they can have access to classified information in order to be able to get us to the point where we can use all of this technology that's out there to better empower our warfighter. And so there's been a lot of things going on. Right now they are overhauling the FAR, which is like, I think, the Federal Acquisition Regulations, and which tells you how you can do business as a business with the federal government. So there's a lot of new rules and regulations and stuff that are going into play. I heard from someone that they might be doing away with the small business set asides because it was a DEI initiative a couple years ago, and the current administration is not very keen on DEI. So, whereas the veteran owned small businesses and women owned small businesses, so they think that those might go away eventually. But I try to only take bits and pieces that are directly related to what it is that I'm doing, because again, I've only been in the space for the last couple of months, and it's extremely confusing. And
Yeah.
most of the people that have been doing government contracting have been doing it lifelong. It's not something that you just fall into, and so I mean, it'll take me years to actually learn the industry.
But it sounds like what I took away. There's always it's actually an interesting time to get in and learn that they're getting rid of some of the waste
Yeah.
and some of the unethical stuff, that there's an opportunity that if the bar's going to be raised a little bit and all that stuff, to kind of do it in a legitimate way. And I mean, that's kind of how I've looked at it. It's like all this stuff like seems like the who you know, what you know, it's kind of a joke, like friends giving friends contracts and all that stuff, but they're getting rid of that and you can kind of compete on merit a little bit more. Well, that seems like to be like a potential opportunity, which is pretty cool.
Well, and it's really cool for small businesses because they are desperately pushing for industry to bring them innovations that will make it more efficient, just give them better ways of doing things that they haven't necessarily thought of and aren't implementing already. And so I applied for a SIBR not too long ago with the Department of Air Force. It's a small business innovation research grant. And historically, only PhDs and, these people that are building these autonomous vehicles and stuff were applying for those. But now they have made it very, I don't want to say easy because it's not easy by any means, but they have cut out a lot of the fluff because they really want people that are making these exciting and innovative things to bring that to the federal government. And so a lot of the contracts that you can find are, they'll say like, oh, the Air Force is looking for a social media platform to use internally. And so a lot of the startups that I work with, I'm like, hey, I can win this contract and I can give this business to you and we can work this contract together. So it's a win-win for everybody. The federal government's getting state-of-the-art technology that they're looking for without having to build it themselves. The startup is getting visibility because they have a huge client now and, money coming in, and they can say that the federal government is using their product. And then, me as a small business owner and connecting all the dots, it's a win-win for everybody.
I mean, that's BD on steroids. Like that's the PhD in BD right there, folks. And that's the level you get to. The partnerships, the connector, and just thinking outside the box and thinking of the multiple areas. Who has the problems and like kind of where does that Venn diagram overlap? And that's how you're thinking about it, and that's how you're viewing it, and it's brilliant, and that really is kind of the next level of it all. And I appreciate you sharing because it just shows that there is so much opportunity. You just sometimes have to rethink how you look at opportunity.
100%. I had no idea that it was even out there. Honestly, before, 5 months ago, I had no idea how the procurement and acquisition system worked throughout the federal government.
What's this is great. Like I guess on a kind of a personal side, like if you were to give advice to new owners, agency owners, people learning like business development, like what it doesn't have to like what would you give them, right? Like how do you just like get there and get through and get to this place? Because I mean, the way what you and I talk about now is a lot different than 9 months ago,
Right.
and
Right.
it just did.
And I couldn't even tell you how I got here, to be honest.
Yeah, but I guess when you look at some of the traits that you have and have maybe developed over the years, and I know you're a mom and have 3 kids, and like you have dogs, you have a lot going on.
I do.
And I guess how do you balance on that? Like what keeps it like what keeps the drive going, right? Like where does that come from?
So I do a lot of mindset training,
Yeah,
and it's legit mindset training. Like I
yeah,
listen to myself in a mask in my own ears, with affirmations and I ams and I'm doing and I already have this and I've already done this and I'm here and people respect me, and just over and over and over feeding my subconscious with that every single night. I have little routines where, before I get out of bed, I pray in the morning. I say 3 things that I'm thankful for. I sit on the side of the bed with my feet touching the floor, take 3 or 4 deep like meditative breaths, set an intention, and then start my day. It sounds super woo-woo, but I'm super ADHD and high anxiety, and I have functioned very sporadically and spastically my entire career. And it wasn't until I learned to handle my mindset that I found clarity. I can really attribute it to that. Like all of my success and everything that has happened and all the stars that have aligned the way that they have is absolutely because I believed in myself and I'm just continuing to go. And as far as, as far as I know, there is nothing ever. There is nothing else. Like I told myself back when I was watching the AI summit, like back in January, that I was going to be on Ben Minna's podcast. I was like, that's going to be me. And like, I could see myself sitting in a chair. And then, a couple weeks ago, he reached out and then I'm recording with him in a couple of weeks. So it's come full circle. But with the state of the world and just everything that's going on, you have to just you have to get really close with yourself. You have to be able to, handle things in a different way. You have to be able to, at the end of the day, say, you know what, I gave it my all. This is what I did. I'm going to put it away. I'm going to go spend time with my family. I'll pick it back up tomorrow. I had a really hard time for a lot of years allowing myself to give myself grace. I felt like I needed to constantly grind and grind and grind, and I needed more and more and more. And it wasn't until the point where I got to the place where I was like, you know what, I honestly have everything that I need. And I don't need anything more, that, things really started to come because I was, it comes from a place of abundance and gratitude. I hate to say that because it's so cheesy, but I mean, it 1000% is true.
I don't take it as cheesy. 10 years ago, maybe I would have, but I've grown up and learned better. And the same thing with the gratitude. I mean, even the prayer, you're reminding me, like, crap, like I've been falling off from doing that every day and all that. Like that was when I've been at my best spiritually. That's what I was multiple times a day. And the three things I'm grateful for in the morning, whenever I've written those down or thought about those, my day is way better.
Yeah.
And right, 2 young kids and 2 businesses, and all, it's easy to let those things slide. But whenever I have to recenter, that's what I go back to and kind of my own version. A lot of similarities there, and it's absolutely not woo woo. And I know that because I've coached hundreds of people now. The common denominator of the people that win and win long term is they take care of their mindset.
Yeah.
And some of that is by continuing to work with me and knowing that they're going to hit the rough patches and they have me as the outlet. And some people have like their own thing that they can do individually, right? And sometimes it's a combination, like building safeguards to know that we're all going to fall. We're all going to have tough days and bad weeks and questions were like, hey, am I bad at sales? Like, what's going on right now, right? And like, what do you have to do? How are you insulating and protecting yourself to give you the kind of the system and the network, the support to overcome those? So it's not a little hole that becomes a trench. It's like it's covered up pretty quickly because you've taken care of it, right? And like that's something I've been learning, even late 30s. Like I'm good at with certain things, but then some things more operationally paperwork, I do kind of let slide until it's a big deal and all that. I'm like, so I'm trying to like get better at that, right? And avoidance is not a solution type of thing. And I think when you can face it head on, sometimes it takes like you have to like rip the big Band-Aid if it's been 100%. A while, right? But then you get to start maintaining it, right? It's like my wife says about keeping the house clean and stuff like that, right? We'll do a deep clean, but then we got to maintain it so we don't always have to do the deep clean, right? It's the same thing with your inner peace, right? Your spirituality, like your mental health, everything else. And it's just legit. So I appreciate you sharing and opening up with that because it's a huge part of it, especially in sales where we're going to get rejected more often than we win.
It makes the rejection so much easier to deal with. Yeah. Like literally they just roll off your back. Like whereas before, and I have horrible ADHD. And so I ruminate, and if I feel like if someone gives me some feedback that I'm not expecting, I just ruminate on it, like why am I not good? Why did they not like me? Why did I not do this? Why did I not do that? And sometimes for days. And I've learned that like, all right, great. That's the way that you feel. Cool. No big deal. I'm just going to keep going.
Right. It's like, well, maybe there's a point there. Maybe there isn't a point there, right? It's also, who are you getting it from?
Right.
Right. There's unsolicited and there's like warranted feedback, and there's people that maybe just didn't have the right context on something. You can clarify that. There's some people that are just jerks and you can address that accordingly. And some people you can kind of just let slide, and like, it is what it, like, it all just depends. But to your point, it's not all on us. There are a million reasons why people don't do things or behave a certain, because they got their own stuff going on. right? And I tell people this, like, most people are ignoring you not because they don't like you or don't think you can do make a good job, but they've maybe had a bad experience with an agency recruiter, and like that's all it is. They're just
For
not
sure.
ready yet. Like, it has nothing to do with you. It's just like where they're at with it, and the need hasn't come up yet to figure out how to vet for a better one. Like, and so how do we stay top of mind and all those other things? I think that's really helpful. I think it's super important to get to, because if you don't, you're gonna burn out. Like, and it's gonna wear on you because we can't possibly just do it all. Like, and we're not going to. So I don't know.
For
It's a
sure.
little bit like the baseball approach, right? Like, if get a hit 3 out of 10 times, you go to the Hall of Fame, but 7 times you're getting an out, right? And like
Right. Well,
that's
and you
how it is.
just have to keep going. Like
That's it.
there's no, I listen to Jay Shetty on a regular basis, and one of the things that he always says is that, like, people think that motivation creates action. Like, people sit around and they're like, I just need to get motivated and then I can start doing stuff. When actually it's the opposite.
Correct.
Action creates motivation. Like, if you
Yep.
just do it and start doing it, that's going to give you the motivation. The little wins are going to start coming, and you're going to get that momentum, and you're going to start, getting into the groove of things. But if you sit around thinking that you need to drum up motivation in order to be able to do something, you're going to be sit around doing nothing for a really long time.
You got to earn it, right?
Yeah.
And I know I'm a God guy, but if you're a universe person, that's why either way, you're not getting rewarded without putting in the effort and like making it
100%.
happen. So I love it. Motivation or action drives motivation, not the other way around.
Yeah.
It's a great way to end things. Jessica, I can't thank you enough for being on here, for sharing. So, happy for you and like pumped for you to see the growth, and there's only just more to come. So again,
Thank you.
thank you, congrats, excited to continue to follow your journey. Um, Anything else to share?
No, I think that's it.
That's great. Connect with Jessica if you haven't on LinkedIn already. The URL will be in the episode bio. If you got some value from this episode, give us some love. Follow the podcast. Give us 5 stars on wherever else the platform is. Tell Jessica how great of a job she did on here, because she crushed it and is killing it. And I know if you listen to this straight through, you learned a ton that you can go put into action. And so if you do, let us know how that goes for you. So
Yes,
um,
please.
until next time, happy hunting, y'all.